Here we go.
Proceed to roll my piece. Backwoods and the onion of green. Burn one, take a break.
You are listening to
Hey, me, no mind.
with show host Wood.
Good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening. Once again, this is the Pay Me No Mind show. Quick turnaround here. I'm actually, it's a big boxing week. And, normally if you listen to any of my previous podcasts, usually me and my brother will do like a snapshot of current events in the world of boxing. But he's been a little busy. And with the important fights coming up this week, I thought that I'd scavenge the Twitter sphere or whatever, the internet, and try to find a co-pilot to kind of break down this week's action and maybe talk about some recent things and then just throw in some random boxing topics. So I was able to get a commitment from a East Coast guy, a longtime avid boxing fan. I'd like to welcome my man James to the show. How you doing, James?
Doing good, how are you?
I'm alright, man. You're actually located in Vermont, is it?
Yeah, that's right, Vermont.
Okay.
Beautiful state.
Okay. I haven't met too many people from the state of Vermont, but
There aren't too many of us, that's why.
now is that
People here.
where Bernie is from?
Is that what?
Is that where Bernie Sanders is from?
Oh, yeah, Bernie, yep.
Okay.
Long time rep and senator here.
Okay, so
On the national stage now.
yeah, he's making a little bit of noise.
Yeah.
But if for anybody that's press play, you can find James on Twitter at Boxing Genius. That's Boxing Genius, and he's also with the handle name of Pugilist Specialist. So, hey James, what's your history with boxing, man? I know you told me you were a writer for the sport before, and you're trying to work your way back into some, being more active in the sport or covering the sport. What's your background with boxing?
Oh, man, I've been a fan since I was a little kid. I'm thinking back, one of the first, if not the first fight I really remember seeing was Duran and Sugar Ray Leonard, back in the 80s, and I was a child of the 80s. Mike Tyson really captured my imagination back then. I just always loved the sport, followed it as long as I can remember. And yeah, I used to, in the early 2000s, I wrote a newspaper column making some boxing predictions. Got busy with life, took some time away. Now I'm trying to get more active again. I've kept watching all along. I'd like to get back to do some more writing, things like that.
Okay. You got any plans? You gonna start your own thing or try to catch on with another paper, or is it a certain site that you're shooting for?
Yeah, I'd like to, in the near future, I've got some ideas on, for a blog. I'd really like, what would really interest me is writing about some of the other topics you don't hear a lot about. Like you hear people say all the time, that guy's a pussy, he quit. Can I say that? I'm sorry, should I
Oh,
you all right with that?
well,
your show.
it's an adult show. Let's keep it natural.
All right. So, you hear people say, like, oh, that guy's a pussy, he quit, Victor Ortiz. You hear that a lot about him, but, I'd just like to tackle topics like that. Well, are any of these guys? These guys, they step into the ring, it's dangerous, they're getting injured. So people sit back, the armchair warriors and criticize these guys. I think there's just a lot of interesting topics around the sport in addition to fight picks and things like that, Because if you're sitting around saying any fighter you're watching is, a pussy, he's no good, I'd like to see anyone get in the ring with him. So I just, that's not it. There's a lot of topics, but I just think there's a lot of things outside of the ring that are interesting to write about, to read about, to talk about.
I totally agree with you. I know when, I kind of had a moment when Roy Jones Jr. got knocked out by Tarver, and, people were questioning his chin and calling him a chump. And, tearing him down. And I thought it was, like you said, I thought it was reckless and very disrespectful to talk about a guy who's made a living fighting for 20-something years. Even some of the comments on Floyd Mayweather, you know, I might question some of his approach to boxing and whatever, or being safety first. But yeah, I always find it very hard to tear these guys down and you know, question their manhood at any level, because like you said, to step in here and square off with another guy and and engage in a boxing match, you know, most guys won't get in a fight on the street. And then, you know, some of the guys that will get in a fight on the street, that's only if they have the upper hand. You know, it's some 6'2" guy that gets bumped into by a 5'6" guy, you know, and he's had a couple of drinks in him, and you turn around and he's more, you know, apt to start something with that guy versus another 6'2" guy or say a 6'6" guy. So I think we all need to take a look at ourselves sometimes when we get into our criticism of some of these pro fighters.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, criticism where it's warranted is fine. You brought up Floyd. You know, obviously great fighter, always in shape, always came ready to fight at the highest level. You know, you can criticize some of his life choices. You can criticize some of his choices of opponents. I would never question his toughness, his commitment to the sport, his skill. You know, you see this stuff all the time, and that's what the internet brings out in people. It's easy to sit back and criticize. You have a forum and all of that. I think I love talking with boxing fans. I do it every day, you know, or tweeting with them or whatever. But there's so much negativity around the sport. There's almost a defeatist attitude. It's like, you know, it feels like some days every fan hates every boxer, and it's like, why? You know.
Yeah, I struggled to. I actually just wrote my first piece on one of our partner sites, goingfor2.com, and I closed out the last paragraph or last portion of it with some thoughts on boxing. One of them we'll get into about the state of, or the effectiveness of the PBC series, but we'll get into that in a minute. But yeah, it's just, you know, we criticize these guys so heavily, and you know, I just appreciate these guys for you know, continuing this sport. I mean, because, and like I said in the piece, a lot of sports that I've followed and a lot of teams that I've supported wholeheartedly throughout the years, they've been major disappointments, and boxing has always found a way to present something for me to follow and be excited about. You know, while some of my teams were struggling and, you know, there's 6-7 straight year futility. So I kind of appreciate it.
Yeah, it's nice. There's no season in boxing, right?
Right. Hey, so you did mention that you were a football fan. You checking out or you got a favorite in this Pittsburgh Steelers Chargers matchup tonight?
Yeah, I play some pick'em leagues. I took the Chargers. You know, just with Roethlisberger out and they're at home, I believe. I took them. I'd pick them to win if, you know, on even money, but I think it could probably go either way, to be honest. It's probably a coin flip.
Yeah, I would expect that Rivers would put up a scrappy performance as usual, and I think Gates is coming back making his season debut, so we'll see. Or maybe that was last week. Might be this week, but we'll see what kind of chemistry they can develop. It'll be interesting to put an eyeball on Melvin Gordon for the Chargers, rookie running back coming out of Wisconsin that I was pretty excited about. Another big news, I know you said you weren't the greatest college fan, but actually USC actually fired Coach Steve Sarkisian today after some substance abuse problems. I guess alcohol has come up on a couple of different occasions. Some of them were very public embarrassments to the university and to Coach Sarkisian himself. So I guess yesterday he was put on leave indefinitely, and I guess as they got time to kind of weigh out that decision as far as keeping him on long term, I guess they chose today to part ways with him. Hopefully he gets some help. It sounds like on several occasions, even in the game, I think the straw that broke the camel's back that he was actually on the sideline intoxicated to some degree. So we'll see what happens there. Lastly, before we get into this boxing talk, for some reason, I associate a team like the Chicago Cubs with boxing, being that, the Cubs haven't won a World Series since like 1908 or something. You rooting for them at all as they go up against division rival St. Louis?
Well, Arrieta, he can beat anybody on any night. They're a good team. They haven't been good in a long time. They're ahead of schedule. They were supposed to be on the long rebuild, and they pulled it together quick. That other kid who came up had a good season. Can't think of his, drawing a blank on his name. Young slugger there. They talked about whether he was going to play this year or not.
Chris Bryant.
Yeah. What's that?
You talking about Chris Bryant?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Just drew total blank on it. I mean, he looks good. They got a lot of talent. They certainly could. St. Louis is a real good team, though. But I'm not crazy about 5-game series in baseball, or one-game playoffs, because I think that in baseball the very best teams win 60% of their games. The very worst teams win 40% of their games. So when you're talking about a one-game playoff or a very short series, you're getting into 50-50 territory. They're not the best and the worst team, so it's a small sample. But I think it gives the Cubs a better chance. You can get a couple great pitching performances, and you can pull out a 5-game series.
Yeah, I'm on board with you with the one-game playoff. For a sport like baseball that's driven by statistics and driven by numbers and all types of metrics and measurements and whatnot, to only have a team season come down to possibly not even being able to run out their ace in their rotation and get get everybody right. It seems just contrary to the sport or the nature and spirit of the sport that you would only have 9 innings to for your season to come down to these 9 innings. Your closer might have pitched heavily the last 2 games to get into that game. It just doesn't sit well with me at all. But like you said, since Epstein, or is it Theo, that went over to Chicago a couple of years ago, they've been saying they were on the come, and then like you said, it did happen pretty rapidly. So I'm actually,
I didn't even believe them when they said that.
Right. But to me, it's a shame, though. Like I said, for the Pirates to, the Pirates have one of the best records over the last 3 years of baseball, had the second best record in the NL league, in the National League this year, and then, only to have 9 games to hold on, for, their postseason. There's something about that doesn't really sit right with me.
Yeah, they won 94 games. I can't remember, something like that, and you end up getting a one-game playoff. I mean, I'm a Mets fan. I love the Mets, but they weren't as good a team as Pittsburgh. They went 0-6, I think, against them during the season. They win their division, but the teams in the NL East were, more or less garbage. Sorry to the other fans out there, but the Mets got to play a lot of games against a lot of bad teams, and they're playing the Dodgers now, and I think for the second year in a row, the Pirates got sent home after a great season. So
yeah, that's pretty tough. And a Midwestern, a smaller market team that took 12, 15, 18 years to become relevant again. You get into a good stretch. Yeah. You get your contracts and payroll, and you get the right players on the contract for that 3 to 5 year run. And like you said, here it is 3 years in a row. Especially this year, this really just was a poor situation for them to try to be successful in. So, we'll see what happens with the Cubs. That could be one of the best, or one of the biggest sports stories of the year. If they could advance through the playoffs and possibly win a title or come close. That could be a big feather in the cap for baseball. Moving on.